one day went up to Minnesota for a work trip. On the way home, got in a 6-car pileup that a semi had started. So went from having this kind of secure job, realistically like this big ego of being the person, to all of a sudden having a brain injury and having to really navigate life that looked quite different. And eventually had to give up my consulting career, which is how I got into real estate. But as most things in life, you can't always see the other side till you're on the other side.
What if the worst day of your life ended up becoming the greatest gift you've ever received? Today, Michelle shares how a devastating brain injury forced her to rebuild her identity, her career, and her life from the ground up. But don't miss the conversation near the end, because her biggest lesson has nothing to do with business. It's the one regret every ambitious entrepreneur needs to hear before it's too late. Look, if you're an entrepreneur who's winning on paper and tired of feeling like you're losing everywhere else, this podcast, it's for you. Welcome to the No Regrets Blueprint podcast. Hey fam, welcome back to the pod. Welcome. Listen, if it's your first time here, welcome to the No Regrets Blueprint podcast. This is the podcast where entrepreneurs who are crushing it on paper and yet feel like there's something else missing everywhere else get together to share ideas, thoughts, concepts of how to build a life of no regrets. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you can get more updates whenever we're meeting with incredible people like Michelle moving forward. So today's guest is one that I'm just really thrilled and excited to get to share with you all. She's been a friend, a partner for the last few years, and yet we've known each other for close to a decade now. And I'm excited for her to be able to share her story. So let me give you the quick background. Let me give you the bio of our guest extraordinaire today. And so let me introduce you to Michelle Ternes, a powerhouse real estate broker, team leader, and coach based in Johnston, Iowa. She is the founder of Discover Des Moines, a collaborative real estate group, and Do the Dang CE, a continuing education platform designed to help agents thrive without burning out. After nearly a decade in the real estate industry, she realized that success wasn't about grinding harder. It was about building smarter, creating systems, and designing businesses that actually support your life rather than swallowing it whole. Her story is one of transition, from a demanding healthcare career into real estate entrepreneurship, and then from a solo grinder to a scalable leader. Look, before real estate, she spent years as a registered nurse in intensive care and general surgery, eventually moving into healthcare economics and then quality insurance leadership. That background gave her a deep understanding of systems, leverage, and high-stakes decision-making, which she now applies to helping real estate agents scale their income without losing themselves in the process. Today, she gets to wear multiple hats, running a real estate team, coaching through Conversations That Convert and the Leveraged Agent Coaching Group, and operating IARE Consulting, which helps agents automate and delegate behind the scenes. Her core message is clear. Collaboration beats competition, and true growth requires strategy, grit, and a whole lot of heart. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I should have you introduce me more often. You always bring the energy.
You can save that recording and play it next time you're about to speak, and just be like, we're going to play this real quick clip before I jump up there. So yeah, so we met originally like 2017, 18 in Iowa when I stepped in to substitute teach for a big real estate training course that was out there, and then I came back to teach it for the full 7-week period. And you were there, your mom was there, and that's where all of this kind of started. So so we're going to get to that part. And yet, look, this is the No Regrets Blueprint podcast. And this is where we talk about transformation and all of that. And so I really want to just get into your story. You had a pretty big transformation, if you will, in your life. Walk us back and just kind of share with us the story, pre-accident, post-accident.
Yeah. So back in 2017, I had been living the dream life, right? I was working as a consultant for a data analytic firm and traveling a lot, really loved my job, was really good at it. And one day went up to Minnesota for a work trip. On the way home, got in a 6-car pileup that a semi had started. So went from having this kind of secure job, realistically like this big ego of being the person, to all of a sudden having a brain injury and having to really navigate life that looked quite different. And eventually had to give up my consulting career, which is how I got into real estate. But as most things in life, you can't always see the other side till you're on the other side. So I think that the accident, I can truly look back now, and I think it was a gift.
So what I didn't realize whenever we had met was fairly recent after that. What were some of the challenges that you had to deal with that other people might necessarily not have been able to see from the outside looking in?
Yeah. So brain injuries are really interesting. There's a saying in the medical field: when you've seen one brain injury, you've seen one brain injury. The brain is just such an amazing organ and it does so many different things, but there's a lot of things that can be kind of happening behind the scenes that a person can seem kind of be seemingly okay, but there's a lot more going on than what's at the surface. So for me, it was really difficult when I first, right after the accident, there were some things that were super obvious. I had to I couldn't walk by myself. I had a cane for a little bit to kind of have balance. My husband, walls, whatever it was, right? I had really bad balance. I had a lot of issues just internally with like blood pressure regulation. I would pass out, faint. Something as simple as taking a shower would take everything out of me. So those first 6 to 8 weeks after the accident, everybody could see physically, like could tell there was something wrong with me. But as I started to recover somewhat from those things, there was a lot of things that still weren't working correctly. But it's, very similar to mental health issues. A lot of people can't see what's happening, or even like the silent diseases. You look at things like POTS or FND, all these things where on the outside people are like, they're just making it up. It seems very unreal. A lot of that was happening with me. So one of the big things for me is my eyes and my brain and my feet, like the balance system, they didn't all work together. So I was reading at the speed of a 6-year-old. And when you're trying to do a job that is really fast paced, there's a lot going on, a lot happening. Reading at that speed, processing at that speed is really, really hard. The other thing too is your brain has a filter. So we are processing just like thousands of pieces of information at any given time. And my filter was broken essentially. So for those of you that are parents, I like to relate it to when you have a kid and you're trying to like talk on the phone or have a conversation with someone else and your kid's like, dad, 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 dad. And you're trying to like process, like, am I listening to the kid? Am I listening to the person I'm talking to? That was what my life was like at all times. I just couldn't filter in and be like, I'm just going to focus on a conversation or focus on the right thing. So everything that I did took 10 times the normal effort that it, normally would have pre-accident. And it was just really exhausting, both physically and mentally taxing. So it became a very difficult challenge. And the biggest challenge of that all was really the mental health piece of this, and kind of feeling like I was going crazy, and trying to maintain like this normal appearance with other people while I was really living in chaos behind the scenes.
I'd love for you to spend a little bit more time here and share like, okay, like, so I don't think we talk enough about the challenges and the struggles that we're all going through. And
Yeah.
everyone just sees, they're like, Michelle, you've got it all, like everything's great. Like, must be nice. You've got it all together, right? How did you keep it together when it felt like everything was falling apart? Like, let's go back to there. What are some of the tools that you use? How did you keep moving forward?
Yeah. So, in full transparency, between the accident and leaving my job, there was not a lot of keeping it together. It was literally like putting on an image. I did a lot virtually. I was, I worked remotely and then traveled a lot. And I was able to cut back some of my travel, but I did still travel some. But a lot of what people saw, I logged on during the day. And when I logged off at night, I went and I laid down right away. Like I just was not. I gave every ounce of energy I had to that job and then had nothing left to give to my family, my friends, or anything outside of that. It was like I hit the wall and then I was done for the day. So I would say there was a period of my life for almost a year where there was not a lot of like just even getting through it. But that turning point came, honestly, my daughter ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks and I had to take another leave of absence to be with her, and my recovery got better while she was in the hospital. I was more stressed, but I wasn't overstimulated. And having conversations with my doctor, he's like, I can't recommend this like on paper, but I think you need to consider switching careers. So that was really where the wheels got turning. This was in October, and I got my license and switched careers in February. But once I switched careers, it was such a blessing, right? It was originally a gift my mom was giving me. She's been in the industry for years, and she was like, "Just come help me part time. Do it as you can. Focus on your
Yeah.
healing." And so I was able to spend a lot of time navigating that. It was really difficult at first because I felt like I was shedding this identity. I was the go-to girl. I was the girl in the industry that a lot of people came to. And now all of a sudden I'm like, who am I? Like I'm nothing in this, like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole all of a sudden. So it was
Hmm.
definitely from an ego perspective, like, whoo. But what it led me to some really great therapists who started working through a program called EMDR. Have you ever heard of EMDR
Yeah.
before?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So EMDR is phenomenal. And to just dumb it down for those of you that don't know, it's eye movement desensitization and reprogramming, something like that. And essentially they usually do it with your eyes because I had visual issues. They couldn't do that. So they give me these paddles that vibrate in each hand. And the thought process here is you think about the trauma that you have, the things that are going on, and it alternates hands. So it gets both sides of your brain interacting at the same time while you're working through this. So for me, at this point in time, I'm still having trouble driving a car on my own, right? And so that was initially, it was like, I just need to be able to get in a car, drive on my own, not freak out when someone stops behind me abruptly or like in front of me abruptly and everybody's got to chain react behind it. And so it was working through that and being able to just take that situation and reimagine that situation of getting in the accident and kind of bringing the rational side into, the process. So like the anxious, emotional, irrational side of my brain was so hyped up and that's all that it knew. I had to bring the rational side into context too, so that both sides of my brain could see that, process it, and make it a lot less traumatizing than it was. Like I can think about the accident now and not feel like my whole body is shaking like I'm there in that moment. So that was one tool where if you have any kind of trauma, it's amazing the layers that got unpacked during therapy. It started with what I thought was just the accident and has spiraled into all the stuff in childhood that has come up that we've been able to work through. But if you have anything that's like traumatizing, really hard to think about, EMDR can be an amazing, amazing therapy. So it started with that and then just really turned into all of these different tools that the therapist had really worked through with me. And I think one of the biggest tools in my toolbox is reprogramming how I talk to myself. Because there's some stuff that we say to ourselves that we would
Hmm.
never ever say out loud to someone else. And that
What
narrative
are
was
what are
just,
some examples of ways
oh
that you
yeah.
used to talk to yourself, and how do you catch yourself now?
I can't believe the amount of times I had said in my head, Michelle, you're stupid. You're an idiot. No one loves you. Like just anything, like really harsh things. And now, if I, like, for instance, if I'm struggling with something and I'm getting really frustrated, instead of saying you're stupid, I say something like, I don't know how to do this now, but I'm learning. Or this is frustrating right now, but if I spend time working on it, I will get it. Like more encouraging and turning that narrative versus turning it internal. And it's like just degrading yourself.
Yeah, that's strong. That's
Yeah.
strong.
And I'm not perfect. I mean, trust me, there are still times I catch myself talking negatively to myself and we're like, girl, we're
Oh,
not
yeah.
doing this. We're not doing this.
Yeah. I'd love for you to share a little bit about like your perspective shift, right? Like pre post accident. And
Yeah.
how do you look at things, stressors, or situations differently today than you did before the accident? Like, do the
Yeah.
same things like stress you out today as they did before, or did that accident kind of give you a new perspective?
Yes, and I think that we're a little naive if we think that you can just go to therapy and work things through and you're going to completely change who you are, how you think, right? So I wouldn't say that it necessarily changed my perspective as much as it changed my awareness. So like kind of what we were talking about with catching thoughts, it's more I was an anxious person before the accident. I am still an anxious person. But how I approach anxiety and how I manage my anxiety looks very different than it did before. I still stress about the little things, but I would say the runway to, like how long I'm stressing about it is a lot shorter because I become aware, I catch myself and I'm able to use those tools. So I think, that was probably one of the hardest things for me to come to the conclusion of with the help of my therapist was that you're not going to change who you are. Anxiety doesn't just magically go away. Depression doesn't just magically go away. Like those things are always a possibility and kind of part of you. It's just the awareness that changes. You can shorten that runway or shorten how long you live in those moments and just make it a little bit more tolerable.
When you're forced to spend a disproportionate amount of time on your physical and mental health and still be a mom and a wife and a daughter and launching a new business, how do you navigate how did you navigate, how did you manage to do all of that when you had something so prevalent right in the forefront?
Yeah. Well, I keep mentioning blessings. I truly, my family has been a lot of a blessing to me from a perspective of just opportunities that were afforded. So having my mom graciously, once I started feeling better, was like, let's just partner. And I walked into a partnership with my mom. And so I had a pretty instantaneous book of business. My dad was a builder at the time. So a lot of like the building the business itself, I don't want to minimize it and say I stumbled upon it because I worked really hard for the business that I built, but maybe actually generating the business, the clientele coming to me, that was a lot easier than most new agents are going to experience. So that was a blessing in itself, in that maybe I didn't have to work as hard from that piece of it. But really, it was just a combination of time and building up confidence and building up myself internally. It all just kind of came together. It wasn't like there was a switch and I was able to just be like, yep, I'm good at this job here. So I'm going to be good over here. Or I instantaneously had this confidence. It was just doing the things, getting the reps in and building up that confidence. And eventually it became a very good business, and just the confidence grew, and I learned to love real estate.
So you had mentioned that, you didn't get into real estate just to sell homes. You got in it to build something that matters. But you also realize that success isn't about grinding harder because business can swallow your life and everything around you. What was the moment that you realized that the grind was no longer for you? Like, what was the wake up call?
I don't know that there's like any one wake up call per se, and I think I'd be lying if I didn't say that I still catch myself getting caught in the grind. It's not like I completely eliminated that and I've got the magic bullet to it. I think it's just been different perspective. It's usually around family and different areas of time where you feel like you had to sacrifice something that just didn't feel good.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
the costs, the
the
unseen
cost, yeah,
costs. Yeah.
yes, and sometimes it's very obvious in that moment. Well, almost always it's you get that gut feel, right? But a lot of times it's that cumulative effect where I've missed this, this, and this, and that's not okay.
Yeah. It's funny that you said, it's a work in progress always. And I shared before, like my wife and my daughters, they'll call me out. Like, okay, so I wrote a book on presence. Well, guess what? I'm not always present. And they remind me really quickly. They're like, hey, no regrets guy. Are you gonna put your phone down? We happen to be like, are we gonna have family time? Or are you gonna keep staring? Like, so I get it, right? And just because I wrote the book doesn't mean that I'm the expert. And, I think we're always optimizing and just continually making those adjustments moving forward, right? So when you were first building your real estate career, I know that you said that you stepped into some opportunity, and yet before you had the systems and the team in place, what did like life actually look like for you? What were the hidden costs of those early successful years for you?
Yeah, a lot of sleepless nights. I would wake up at 3 in the morning trying to remember what piece of the transaction I was missing, who I forgot to call back. Just there's a lot of chaos, right? We say this all the time in our industry. It's like herding cats. So you
Oh
get
yeah.
under contract and you think, yes, this is it. This is easy sailing from here. And really that's when that's when everything just begins, right? And so without having those systems in place, we were doing quite a bit of business, but it was really haphazard. I honestly think about the first few years I had in real estate and I'm like, I don't know how I even did it, because it was really depending on things just falling in place at the right time and there not being any hiccups in the transaction. And as you are well aware of, there's almost always a hiccup in the transaction.
There's
So
always a hiccup.
yeah, it was a very reactive business instead of a proactive business, and just very, very uncomfortable. I lived a lot of my life on edge, like what's wrong? What's going to happen next? What am I missing?
Yeah, so that feeling, right? Like, I think as high performers that are watching this, they could probably attest to this as well. Like, there's always that, like, I could be doing it better. I could be more effective and efficient. And a lot of high performers struggle with letting go of control. They think like, if I want to do it right, I got to do it myself. When did that belief shift for you? When did it stop working for you? And what did it cost to learn that lesson?
I think this is still one of those work in progress things, right? Like slowly still giving things away. I just had a conversation with a gal on my team and I was like, okay, we're going to co-list this together. I'm going to write down exactly what your tasks are and what mine are, what the expectations are, because I've been terrible about giving stuff away because I don't clarify up front, like what the expectations are. And then I just am like, I'll just keep it. I'll just do it. I don't want to inconvenience anybody, be off on anything.
Mhm.
So, but I would say the first hire that I had that was the best hire was a transaction coordinator. I don't care if you're brand new in the business, you need a transaction coordinator because you shouldn't be thinking about all the little things that are just really chasing emails and checking boxes. And it's so nice to have someone to be able to like kind of just let everything go and know that someone's going to raise their hand and tell you like, hey, this didn't get done in time. Hey, this is due next week. Don't forget, whatever, like to just have someone there to remind you of all the pieces of the puzzle that you need to be putting together. So getting the transaction coordinator was life changing. I don't know how else to say that from a perspective of just taking a deep breath and being able to be like, okay, this is like I can focus on the thing that I'm best at, and that's communicating and connecting with other people. So that was actually fairly easy.
Mhm.
I say that and then I think about it and I'm like a little type A, you know this. And so
Little?
it
Bro,
was it was hard at first to trust the TC, but once the TC showed me that they're not going to drop the ball on anything, then it became easier to be like, okay, we've got this. And we've had multiple TCs. In fact, I have a virtual assistant now that is overseas that does a lot of that coordination. And it's been an interesting transition of like what I am more forgiving of. Like things aren't as much of an emergency as I thought that they were, or an urgency as I thought they were. And most everything that they're doing behind the scenes, if one thing gets, a day behind or whatever, it's not the end of the world. So that's been an evolution from that perspective. But yeah, I think that, and then the CRM is huge just from a perspective of not losing track of leads. So my mom being in the business, so when I started with her, it would have been 22 years she was in the business, I think. No, it had to be more than that. She's been in the business, it was a long time. So she had a huge database and we weren't really working it, and just that it was really haphazard. People were just coming to us through the builds or past clients that actually remembered. And so having a CRM was really big on like, how do we not lose track of people? And when people need things from us, being able to just have something to organize that and not forget them. That was probably the second thing. And that I think was easier too, from a perspective of there was nothing control wise. It gave me more control. And then the third was time blocking. And I really didn't start doing this till I started coaching with you. I don't know if you remember this conversation when I was really resistant to wanting to time block because I didn't want to give away my time freedom. Do you remember what you said? You said that I was going to gain more freedom by blocking my time. And
it's
that's so true.
it's the most counterintuitive piece that I could share with anybody, and it goes back to, the phrase from Jocko Willink, and it's discipline equals freedom, right? The thing is that until you control your time controls you because you're constantly in reaction mode. And if your calendar is blocked with the things that it's gonna take in order for you to win, and you just follow that, then when you're out of those time blocks, you've got relief. Like, there's no guilt. Like, we talk about the source of a lack of presence is guilt from not doing the things you should be doing in each of the areas of our life. So whether it's business, it's because we don't follow a calendar and we're not doing those needle moving activities, when we're not accountable to that, Then when we're home, we feel guilty when something from work pulls us out of that world, and then vice versa. Yeah, it's probably the number one. It's one of the first lessons that I work with people on every level. If you're listening to this and you don't have, like, if your calendar isn't completely engineered towards your goals, you're leaving a huge slice of life on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, you talk about mental energy or mental battery. We all start
Mhm.
with a battery and we only have so many thoughts per day that we can have, right? And so the less you have to think about, the more you can actually apply your energy towards things that are going to move the needle forward. But I think the thing I see the most, and I struggle with this, I mentor new agents as well that aren't on my team. And the thing I see the most is as most people get into real estate, why? They want time
Freedom,
freedom.
freedom, fortune, and flexibility.
Yeah, but they don't when they
Three
say they
F's.
want freedom and flexibility, a lot of them mean they just wanna work 10 hours a week, and it doesn't work that way. Now, you could probably make pretty decent money, okay-ish money with putting 10 hours of really
If
focused
you actually
effort
put
in.
10 hours in,
Yes.
people say though that they're
Yes.
doing 10 hours and they've done 30 minutes of work. They spend
Yeah.
10 hours getting ready to do 30 minutes of work. Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to prep my list. I'm going to get
Yeah.
my CRM ready. I'm going to get the I'm going to practice some scripts. I'm going to do all the things other than reach out and connect with somebody.
Right. Right. I'm gonna do all the things that feel comfortable and feel good, but I'm not gonna do anything that makes me just feel.
Dude, the creative avoidance for salespeople is just next level. Is that people are so good at talking about all the things that they did other than work.
100%. And I'm giggling because, we obviously know each other very well. And like, we can be masters of creative avoidance as well.
I'm so good at making you like go, oh well, okay, good, okay, yeah, all right. I can see why you didn't do what you said you were gonna do. But at the end of the day, like regardless of how good you are, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. You know whether or not you maintain your commitments. And it wasn't until a coach flipped it for me and said, "When are you gonna stop being out of integrity? When are you gonna stop being a fraud?" And I'm like, "Chill, bro." And he goes, "Listen, you set these goals. You said you were gonna do it. When you don't show up for you, how are you gonna show up for anybody else? You're talking about not having enough business or clients not choosing you. Why would they choose you? You don't even choose you because you don't even keep up your own promises to yourself. So why would anybody hire you? Because that energy is your business card. People can smell that across the table. And that's something that people don't understand.
Yeah.
Is
And
your lack of integrity for your own goals and commitments is transparent and can be smelled across the table. That's gonna
and
be a clip. That probably is gonna be a clip.
that's going to be a clip. And to pull into that and tie it even back into the whole mental health piece of things we talked about earlier, the best way to build self confidence is to keep the promises that you make to yourself.
Say it again,
The
please.
best way to build self confidence is to keep the promises that you make to yourself.
That's it.
It
That's it.
is.
Just start stacking small wins and keeping promises. Self-worth and confidence are tied to commitment and execution. Period. That's so, so good. That's so, so strong. So good. Oh, what was I gonna ask you now? It's a live show, ladies and gentlemen. Boop-a-doo. So, okay, you went from, practitioner to, business owner. You're always working on a lot of different things. And yet, one of the things that's always been consistent is you've always been a coach, a consultant, a mentor. Talk to me about like what's the most rewarding part of that for you and why do you keep leaning towards wanting to support and serve others? Ah, I remember what I was going to talk about. In my mind.
Keep it in there. Keep it in there.
It's good. It's good. You'll like it.
Have always felt called to help people. I think that's why I became a nurse in the beginning. In my past roles in my consulting job, I've just always been like a connector and a communicator by nature. It's just something that I feel really passionate about, something that I feel like I'm really good at. So as I was working through real estate and kind of thinking about the next levels, so all of my children are out of the house now, right? My youngest is 20 and in college and across the country. And so for me, it was really wanting to build this life that I can go visit my children. So I got two across the country. I can go visit my kids whenever I want, but you can't do that if you're actively working your own business. And so for me, it initially started as how can I kind of keep my feet in real estate but be able to have a little bit more flexibility to not need to be physically here all the time. And so that kind of started the coaching and the mentorship. And also, how can I give back to others? I feel like we are gifted with these skills and knowledge that as we grow, it's just, I don't know, the circle of life, right? We need to be giving that back to other people and not just hoarding it ourselves. So it started as mentoring and then got involved in the coaching and then eventually transitioned into starting a team. And the team was more around the leverage. So I could still do my personal production and be able to travel and have that backup because it gets really exhausting if you travel more than once a year asking, one of your colleagues to cover your business for you.
So one of the questions that I was going to ask was about your kids. And you just shared that your kids are now grown and out of the house. And I'm firmly aware that I'm being like exceptionally and hyper aware of how little time I have left with my littles who are now
Yeah.
13 and 16. I realize like I got like two more summers with Anya, and then Sophie's, I got like 4 or 5 more with her. And leading up to that time as you're building, right? And I think this is one of the conversations that isn't had enough. When you're in build mode and you know that your time is ticking for those that you say you're doing this for most, how did you navigate and make sure you honored everything? How did you make sure you honored everything as appropriately as it needs to?
I would say that's probably one of my biggest regrets, honestly, is thinking I had more time. Thinking I would just like, I would next month, next month, next month, right? And right now my daughter is home for 5 weeks in the summer and I'm being very diligent about spending time with her. I am so like proud of myself from a
Yeah.
perspective of I'm intentional. Like I worked from home this afternoon because I knew she'd be here and I could bump into her and have some time with her, right? But I think that's one of my biggest regrets with my children is that I had been so focused on building something that I missed what was right in front of me. And you don't get that time back. I think that's the hardest part is you don't get that time back and you never know where life's gonna turn, right? My 2 years ago, I had kids here and I assumed my daughter was going to school locally and I assumed my oldest would be here. And all of a sudden, I've got a son in the military and across the country and a daughter who lives in Boston and comes home for, the Christmas and like a short time frame in the summer. So I never anticipated that. I thought I had more time, meaning I thought I'd still have a lot of like whole summers with her and have them close by and have my son here. And like now I don't, right? So I can't rewind time. And I probably spend more time than I should admit here, like regretting that from that perspective. But I think that in hindsight, if I could do it all over again, I would definitely have had better boundaries and better time with my family. Because a lot of the things that I was putting attention on could have waited until tomorrow, but I just didn't have I don't know if you'd say the confidence or I had a lack of like a more of a scarcity mindset too. Like I just had to always be chasing after everything. And yeah, so I guess if I could give anybody a piece of advice that is working through juggling being an active parent with real estate, it is so important to build those boundaries up because your kids are not going to be with you forever. Your time with them is very limited
Yeah.
and you'll never get that time back. You can always build your business.
This topic. So I have there's some posts that I put out to help kind of drive the conversation towards the no regrets blueprint and the life. And one of the ads that I have out there is there's an image of and I put this happened, like this is personal, right? Like there's an image of a dad on the beach on the phone, and the kids are playing in the beach, and it says on the ad, it just says he closed the deal, missed the moment. Same thing with there was an image of a girl playing soccer, says he closed the deal but missed the goal. And it's interesting the comments that I see in there. And again, I understand where they're coming from. And a lot of the comments are coming from, well, you don't understand, bro, that someone's got to provide, and you don't understand, bro, the kids aren't going to remember that you were at the soccer game if they're not fed, or like there's these interesting comments where, look, if you're really struggling to keep things together and even put food on the table, I get it. That's a different conversation than kind of the one that we're talking about here, and yet it's not, Because if we were as intentional and hardcore in our business as we're supposed to be in the time that we have it, then we could afford an hour. We can afford a minute. And I've rarely run into a deal or a situation where I couldn't just not answer for 30 to 45 minutes. Like when we're talking about a kid's soccer game, they're like an hour. Like when
Right.
we're talking about and so like I understand where it's coming from, but I also think it's part of the conversation. So with that being said, this is a theme of those that have achieved, those that have gone on the other side, their kids are grown, etc. If you survey and talk to the most successful entrepreneurs and builders out there, regardless of net worth or otherwise, you say, do you have any regrets? And they say the same thing: nail the time with your kids when they're littles.
Mhm.
You can always make more, you can always make up, et cetera, et cetera. Why do you think that that's a lesson that is really it lands after the fact as opposed to people really taking it to heart in the moment?
I think there's a couple things. I mean, I think we lie to ourselves in thinking that we hide under this guise of providers that that we are what we're doing is okay and justified because we're providing for our family. So I think that's kind of one thing is we tell ourselves this story, and I'm sure that that's just a narrative that society has put out there, right? Like all about money and providing for your children. And I feel like our kids today, what they get today, is so much different than what we got as kids, what our parents got as kids, right? Like what was provided from the parent level is just magnified from that perspective. So there's a higher expectation of what providing is. What was my other thought on that though? There was a good one, Matt, and it just went like shoop.
There's a lie of the provider being justified,
Yeah,
and then
I don't know. It was good. It was really
when
good,
it
I
well,
tell you.
when it comes back,
When it comes back.
you'll definitely let me know, right? So let's the businesses and the companies that you're working with and you're creating, right? Like do the dang CE.
Yeah.
Even the name it's like the name is it seems like it was born out of a frustration.
It was actually so I had a business partner at the time and we had an operations manager. And so we started the CE school to really help with our team, to be able to provide free CEs to our team. And we were just coming up with names and just spitballing stuff. And they're like, do the dang CE. Like, no one wants to do their CEs. They're all just
Just
like,
do
oh,
it.
it's at the end. Like, just do the dang CE already. So that was really, it was more playful than spiteful. It was more just, to have fun, like just do the
But
dang
it's the
CE.
procrastinator's call out.
It is the procrastinator's call out. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It was fun and it stuck.
What do you think's the biggest lie that real estate or entrepreneurship sells people?
Yeah. That it's easy. There's so many ads out there that just make it seem like it's a get rich scheme. And don't get me wrong, you can make, I mean, I would say real estate is one of the only careers where you can make as much as a doctor, a lawyer, a pro football player in a lot of cases, right? Like you are really in control of your income, but I think it's glamorized and people think that it's just going and showing houses and you're going to go and just make one post on social media and all of a sudden you're going to have all this business. I don't think a lot of people realize the amount of time and energy that you invest in the business, all the different hats that you wear and really we're a lot more consultants than we are salespeople. You've got to have a deep knowledge or like really be tapped into people with a deep knowledge about the real estate process because there are so many things that can happen from the time you go under contract to the time you close. And if you aren't well versed with that, especially if you have an agent on the other side that isn't well versed as well, a deal could fall apart super easy. You can take someone from getting their dream home to losing their dream home really quick. So yeah, I would just say like the glamorized, this is easy and
Yeah, HGTV screwed us.
HGTV, I
I
cannot
think
tell you.
everybody just sees 3 houses and pick one.
I'm sure you experience this too when you're coaching, when you have new team members and you're like, why did you get into real estate? I love showing
Why did you start a
houses.
team?
Love showing
Right?
houses. Yeah, I know. Right. Right.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
thing. I mean,
Yeah.
even just people that are building teams, it's like, stop. Why? Like, you got to get real clear on why. Like,
Yeah.
help me understand, because you're about to step into a whole new world. Because
Yeah, I think
it's no longer just
that's
about executing and being in sales, because now you're in leadership and HR.
and that is probably the other misleading thing, right? So I had started a team with a partner and we grew to 10 agents pretty fast. And that, like, if you want to talk about failures, I tell you what, there's so many lessons I have learned in my
There you
life,
go. I
right?
was gonna say,
Failure,
like, there
well,
are no failures.
it's
They're
not,
just
yeah,
education.
yeah, yeah, right. Like failures are just stepping stones, right? But man, we grew this team and it was, I had this great grand idea that we should just grow this mega team, and my partner wasn't really on board with that. So first things first, don't start a team with someone unless you can make sure you guys are aligned on your goals, because that always ends up just messy, right? And then second, like a I don't know, you either need a small team or a big team. I mean that there is just a very small threshold of what works well with teams. I feel like a lot of people get into running a team because they think it's going to be profitable. I always joke, I'm like, yeah, I ran a team last year and it was a nonprofit. It's a lot of work. And all of a sudden you become IT support and you have to figure out how to make your systems and tools work for a whole team and not just one person. And yeah, it's a lot of work. I think it can be really rewarding in the right situation, but it's again, I think running a team is glamorized just like being an agent is glamorized, right? It's just like the next thing that you should do, the cool thing to do. And that's a lot of work and a lot of energy.
Okay, so for the entrepreneur that's listening right now, that's winning on paper, but
Hmm.
feels completely swallowed up by their business, what's the one thing that you would tell them to do today before it costs them something they can't get back?
Slow down, get super clear with yourself and what it is you want. Because a large majority of the time when we are feeling overwhelmed and stressed, it's because we are putting expectations on ourselves that aren't aligned with our purpose and where we're meant to go. We absorb all these ideas. This person thought I should do this. This person thought I should do that. So I should do it. And you're not checking in with yourself to be like, is this what I even really want? So I would say number one would be just slow down, take the time to journal, to meditate, to get really clear on what do you want? What do you like about your job? What don't you like about your job? Where do you maybe need to get leverage? And where do you just need to maybe shed some things?
So good.
So
Awesome.
good. So good.
So good. So if somebody is and is still listening today and your message resonates with them, what's the best way that someone can connect with you?
Yeah. You know what? I am like loving social media right now. So probably the best place to connect with me is on Facebook. It's michelle.h.ternes. That's Ternes is my Facebook handle, or realtor underscore Michelle with two L's underscore on Instagram.
Awesome. Awesome. Look, and if you're still here, we appreciate you. And if this message resonates with you and you feel like it could bring value to somebody else's world, please share this episode. And again, if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit subscribe, like this video if this is a good one for you. And if you wanted to get deeper into the different tools and techniques that we use to live a life of no regrets, you can always go to noregretsblueprint.com for all things no regrets. So till next time, we'll see you guys soon.